I woke up to a hard metallic click outside my cabin door, then the handle jerked once, twice, and didn't move. The next sound was worse, liquid splashing against the siding like someone was watering a garden, except the air instantly filled with that sharp, sweet stink of gasoline. When my security camera feed loaded, Brenda Caldwell was standing there in the glow of my porch light, arms folded, watching my place like she was waiting for a microwave to beep. My name's Ethan Walker, and that cabin wasn't some weekend toy. It was the last clean piece of my family's land, tucked against a tree line just beyond Stonegate. Stonegate looks cute from the entrance sign, perfect lawns matching mailboxes, little flags on holidays, and a homeowners association that acts like it owns the sun. I stayed out of their way for years because I've learned a simple rule in life. Never argue with people who have time, a group email list, and a taste for control. The problem was, my land sat right where Stonegate wanted to expand. One day I got a letter with the Stonegate Homeowners Association letterhead, big bold logo, serious tone, like I was being subpoenaed instead of contacted. It said the board had decided my property was essential to the community's long-term plan and they were prepared to proceed. Not, would you consider not? We'd like to talk, just proceed. I laughed at first like an actual laugh because it was so ridiculous. Then I read the signature at the bottom, Brenda Caldwell, HOA President. I'd seen her at meetings in the clubhouse before, the type with perfect hair, perfect smile, and eyes that never soften. She showed up 2 days later in person like she was doing me a favor. Brenda stopped at my gate with a clipboard, heels sinking into gravel, and she gave me that bright customer service voice people use when they're about to ruin your afternoon. Ethan, she said, sweet as syrup, you're sitting on an incredible opportunity. Stonegate is growing. We're building something special. I'm not selling, I said. Her smile didn't change. You don't really want to be the guy who stands in the way of progress. I remember looking at her clipboard and realizing she hadn't brought a contract. She'd brought confidence. She leaned in a little like we were sharing a secret and she said, accidents happen. Fires happen. It's dry out here. Insurance gets complicated. Then she stepped back like she hadn't just dropped a threat on my driveway. Think it over, she said. The board doesn't like delays. After that, the pressure didn't come like a punch. It came like sandpaper. My mailbox got knocked clean off the post. My fence line got snipped in 2 spots like somebody wanted to remind me it could be opened any time. A couple times my water pressure dipped for no reason, and the power flickered in the cabin like a warning blink. And every time I tried to treat it like a normal problem call, the county asked questions. Document it. Stonegate's HOA had a new complaint waiting for me. Unapproved fencing materials, debris visible from common areas, aggressive behavior toward board members. Aggressive, me. Brenda didn't just push, she recruited. Suddenly neighbors I'd never spoken to were staring when I drove by like I was the one causing trouble. I'd walk into the local store and feel conversations pause for half a second, just long enough to tell me the HOA had been busy. At night, a drone started passing over my tree line, slow and deliberate like it was counting. I'd step outside and hear it, that mosquito hum, then see a little blinking dot sliding through the dark. I couldn't prove it was Stonegate, but I didn't have to be a detective to recognize harassment with better batteries. I tightened my routine. I added cameras. I backed up footage to an off-site drive because I've learned that the one thing bullies hate more than confrontation is evidence. I started keeping a paper trail, 2 dates, times, photos, copies of every letter, every warning, every friendly notice Brenda's board mailed like they were charging me rent on my own peace of mind. Then there was a week where it all piled up at once. Another HOA violation notice, another cut fence, another late-night drone pass, and I just sat at my kitchen table staring at the stack. Not dramatic, not cinematic, just a tired man looking at ink on paper and realizing how expensive it is to keep being right. I actually caught myself thinking, maybe I should stop fighting. Maybe I should take the buyout, walk away, let Stonegate have their perfect little empire. And then the next thought hit right behind it. What if I'm missing something? What if there's some clause buried in some old agreement, some easement language, some technical detail I didn't see? Because the way Brenda acted like she already owned my land wasn't casual. It was confident. That's the thing nobody tells you about dealing with an HOA. Sometimes they don't have to be correct. They just have to be relentless long enough that you start checking yourself. The next morning I did something simple. I called a local property attorney not to start a war, just to confirm reality. And he told me what I already believed in my bones. Ethan, this is yours. They can ask. They can pressure. They can't take. Hearing that flipped a switch in me. Not rage focus. If Brenda wanted to fight, fine, but it was going to be on a record. 2 nights later, I got my answer about fires happen. I was inside the cabin half asleep on the couch when my phone buzzed with a motion alert. I tapped it and saw 2 figures moving along the side of the building, dark hoodies, faces down. One of them had something in his hand, a container sloshing as he walked. I jumped up and ran to the door. The handle wouldn't turn. At first I thought the lock was jammed. Then I saw the deadbolt, thrown from the outside using some kind of tool. My stomach dropped. I shoved the door anyway hard, like force could fix betrayal. It didn't budge. Then the splash hit the wall. Gasoline, no question. I backed away, heart hammering so loud I could hear it in my ears, and I tried the side door. Same thing, locked. I hit the window and ripped it open, sucking in cold air like it was oxygen for my brain. And that's when I saw her on the camera feed again. Brenda Caldwell, standing near the edge of my porch light, not rushing, not panicking, watching. She wasn't holding a match. She wasn't carrying a can. She didn't have to. She was the kind of person who could burn your life down without smudging her manicure. A flame flashed near the corner of the cabin, small at first, like a cruel little joke. Then it caught Fast Hungry climbing the siding and licking up toward the roof line. I didn't have time to process feelings. I had time to move. I shoved a chair through the nearest window, crawled out, and hit the ground hard enough to taste dirt. The heat slapped my back as I sprinted away coughing, trying to angle toward my truck, trying to grab anything useful, extinguisher hose, anything. But the wind was already doing its own math. The fire jumped to the dry brush, raced the fence line, and then it crossed. Straight toward Stonegate, toward all those perfect lawns and matching mailboxes and people who'd been told I was the problem. Sirens came in fast, too fast for comfort, because it meant someone else had already called. Red and blue lights splashed across smoke, and suddenly the road turned into chaos. Residents running barefoot, kids crying, people dragging pets, shouting names into the dark. I don't care what anyone thinks about me when I saw that I moved toward it. I yelled warnings. I banged on a couple doors. I helped an older guy get his truck started when his hands were shaking too hard. That night wasn't about pride. It was about keeping people alive long enough for the firefighters to do their job. By the time the first engines rolled in, Brenda was gone. Of course she was. Leaders like her love the spotlight. Until it gets hot. The next day, the air looked bruised. Ash floated like dirty snow. My cabin was a charred shell, and parts of Stonegate looked like a nightmare that didn't match the brochure. Homes damaged, cars melted, a few people treated for smoke inhalation, one firefighter with a bandaged arm. And still, Brenda tried to control the story. She showed up at an emergency meeting in the Stonegate clubhouse and spoke with trembling outrage like she'd just witnessed an act of terrorism. She pointed at me without pointing at me. "This is what happens," she said, "when we let certain unstable individuals interfere with community safety." Unstable, again. I didn't shout. I didn't lunge. I just sat there and listened, because now I understood the game. Brenda wanted emotion. Emotion is messy. Emotion makes you look guilty. Evidence doesn't. The fire marshal, Hannah Brooks, walked my property with a notebook and a calm face that never flinched. She checked burn patterns. She took samples. She asked about my cameras. When I told her I had off-site backups, her eyebrows lifted just a millimeter, like she'd heard the same story before, except usually the footage is missing at the convenient moment. Then my neighbor Mason Reed came forward, Stonegate resident, not exactly my biggest fan. He admitted he'd seen a dark SUV creeping near my place earlier that night, and 2 men moving fast like they had a schedule. That's when the investigation stopped being a tragedy and started becoming a case. A couple days later, deputies picked up the 2 guys from the footage. Not masterminds, not professionals, just hired hands who thought they were doing intimidation work. And once they realized they were facing real charges, not HOA violations, not clubhouse lectures, real charges, they folded. They gave up the details like it was spilled coffee. They said Brenda paid them to scare me, make me sell, make me cooperate. They said she talked about a small fire controlled just enough to shake me. They said she told them to lock the doors first, so he can't stop it. One of them even said she kept calling it a lesson. A lesson. That was the moment I stopped feeling tired, because tired is what they want you to be. Tired people sign papers. Tired people surrender. Tired people disappear quietly so the board can put a new pin on a map. Brenda got arrested outside the clubhouse right where she'd like to stand when she handed out threats dressed as community standards. No big speech, no dramatic confession, just a deputy reading her rights while she tried to keep her voice steady like she could out-talk handcuffs. Her face finally did what her smile never allowed. It cracked. Stonegate's HOA didn't survive the fallout. Lawsuits hit like rain. Board members resigned. Insurance companies asked questions the way sharks ask questions. And the neighbors who'd treated me like a villain suddenly remembered my name correctly when it mattered. The last time I saw Brenda, she turned her head like she wanted to say something clever, some final line, some parting shot. But there was nothing left to perform. She'd built her power on paper and fear, and both had finally caught fire. Lesson. When someone uses an HOA like a weapon, the only thing that beats it is a calm voice and a hard trail of proof.